Hey guys, this is Blake from Blake's Sanctum, retro site for retro games. Subscribe.
Welcome to a special bonus episode in my video series covering classic Civilization genre games like Colonization, Master of Magic, Test of Time, Alpha Centauri, Call to Power, and of course the Civ series itself. In these bonus videos I'll be touring some of the awesome fan games and my favourite scenarios and mods for all these games, while also trying to sneakily play as the Barbarians via hacks or cheats. In my main series I show you how to play these great old games in HD using either special versions, tricks or mods. Check out the playlist link up top or in the video description and comments below to see the other episodes. Hey guys, this is another episode in my Civilization video sub-series of how to play as the Barbarians. And as you can see here, I've managed to do it in Civ 2. So this is the video covering that. Now, like in Civ 1, you can hex edit the player to be Barbarian. However, it's a lot of hassle, so I prefer to just use the game's inbuilt cheat menu to do it. And I'll show you how to do all that later. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'll show you my game and I'll give you a breakdown of all the things you can do and can't do, as there's a lot of similarities to all the advantages and disadvantages you have when playing as the Barbarians in Civ 1, but there's a few interesting differences in Civ 2, some for the better, some for worse. What's really cool is that when you're doing this in Civ 2, you've got access to scenarios as well, so you can actually play as the Barbarians and all the fancy scenarios out there where, you know, Barbarians have all sorts of crazy sci-fi and fantasy units and aren't as badly restricted as they are in the vanilla game. They might access some super units for all you know, so pick your favourite scenario and give this trick a try, and I'll show you how to do it later. Now you may have noticed that I'm playing Civ 2 in HD and everything's looking quite, big. Or the viewing range is big and everything's looking quite small within that viewing range, and that's because I'm playing Civ 2 on a modern operating system on a nice LCD screen, and I'm using some fan patches to help enhance it, which gives a few advantages, like seeing how many turns a set list put into a job, and what else? Mouse scroll when you're viewing a large collection of units. Let's see if I can find an example of that. Big army down here. So there you go. There's the mouse scroll. So you couldn't do that in the original, but the wonderful fan patches fix that, and it's also done stuff in the cities as well to help you scroll through units in these areas, which you couldn't do before as well, which is very handy. But I haven't got any cities filled with units, so I definitely can't show you that one. Now, if you're wondering how all that works and how I did it, I've done a main Civ 2 video, where I go all through how you play Civ 2 in HD and full of mods, and obviously it's much less hassle getting this game in HD than it is to Civ 1 in HD, but nevertheless you'll still need to do a few things to get it going smoothly. So I'll put a link to that video up the top, and there'll be another link on my end card as well. But anyway, let's get on to playing as the Barbarians. Firstly, there's a weird problem in Civ 2 where the map doesn't update properly. An example of that is when you're moving through the fog of war. So I'll move this ship here that I've just created, and see how it's like not quite cleared the area properly. There's like a bit of a clearance but not a proper one. But if I either click the mouse nearby, if I left click the mouse nearby, or I press the C key, which centers the main view, you can see it in the view menu. See, center view, see? And I find that one quicker and easier. I just got to keep my finger on the keyboard while I'm doing all the main stuff with the mouse. So I hit C and bang, now you can see what's uncovered. This also happens with attacks, which is even more annoying. So you fight someone, you attack someone, and you can't see the result. Like, I'll just suicide this guy. And now what else? You may have noticed I've given myself some strong cities. I mean, they weren't this strong at the start of the game, but just like in my Civ 1 Barbarian game, you've got to give the Barbarians some power at the start, otherwise, you're really going to be in trouble. The odds of you winning are very slim. So I set up a few cities that pump out like catapults and pikemen to help with defense. I had this one doing chariots, but I switched it over to barracks, and this one's doing barracks too. And what I do is I build barracks and I sell them continuously, because this is one of the limitations. In Civ 1, they could build nothing but legions, whereas at least in Civ 2 you got some choice. You can build settlers, warriors, and barracks. So selling barracks is the only way to make money, because you cannot make money. Like what you do here doesn't do much at all, pretty much. There's science does nothing, and you can't generate money, just like in Civ 1. So if I go to my advisors and the trade advisor, like none of this means anything. It might say you're making 20, but you're not actually. You'll make 0. So the only way to make money is to sell buildings. And so just keep building, have a city that just keeps building barracks, and as you start taking over the world, you can start getting other cities, the ones you capture from the AIs, to build barracks too, and you start making a profit. But you might want to sort of cheat yourself a bit of money to handle that one. Now, as I said, science doesn't work either. It just sits there doing nothing. You can steal, I think you can steal texts and like trade texts with AI, but they disappear as soon as you get them. So there's just no point. You're stuck in the dark ages, and you'll have to use basically either the cheat editor or a city editor, which I'll show you guys later, made by fans, to set your cities to build things like catapults and stuff that you can't normally build. What else doesn't? Oh yeah, you got no throne room, or I mean you've got a throne room, but it just never updates. I've been playing a long game, and this is a mid game. I might load an end game one now to show you how that works. Here we go. So this is right before I won the game. I was killing the last 2 civs, and as you can see, throne room is still the same, still doesn't work. What else? You got no government. So you're stuck in despotism, just like in the original Civ 1 Barbarian game. However, in that I was able to use the third-party editor, and in this one I was able to do the same thing. I wasn't able to change my government via the game's inbuilt stuff, but you can using a fan-made editor, which I'll show you guys later. So I set myself to monarchy once again to give myself a fighting chance. Yeah, what else? I suppose I should start talking about combat, and that works the same way in Civ 1 in that a computer with one city, its last city, is invulnerable. You could put 10 tanks around a capital city and they will all be vaporized with nothing but a lousy little militia defending it, like a little warrior unit. They cannot win. It is impossible. They're basically invulnerable. So the only way to kill players is to wait for them to build a second city, and then once that happens, their capital is no longer invulnerable. However, they still get massive defense bonuses, like their firepower shoots right up, and so you will still lose a lot of units attempting to attack a capital, which is why I set one of my cities to build catapults. It's the only way to even have a fighting chance. You cannot, while in Civ 1 you almost could have a fighting chance of playing as the Barbarians without any kind of editing or cheating, it is impossible in Civ 2 because you can build nothing but those little warrior units, nothing but that. And you cannot win a game with warriors. It is simply impossible. And unfortunately in Civ 1, when you overtake a enemy city, it would often be set to what they were building. So say if a city was building catapults, you could actually do it naturally. That doesn't work in Civ 2. If you take a city in Civ 2, the Barbarians will automatically revert to a warrior, no matter what the AI was building before you took that city. So you've got no choice. You need to use an editor to set the build queues to something more interesting if you want to win. I mean, if you just want to have a true vanilla experience and and die horribly, then hey, go for it. But if you want to play to win, then you're going to need to use an editor to set one or more of your cities to pump out catapults. I think by this stage I was happy with the amount of armies I had, and so I'd set pretty much all my cities to build barracks. But let me see. What you do is, once they've got the second city, you need to make sure their population's at a decent amount too, so you don't just insta-kill a city. But what you're going to do is you've got to take out the defences of their capital, and then once the city's empty, see how there's no flag there as opposed to here where there's a flag? Once there's no one in that city, you can then throw everything you have at the second city and kill it. if you want, or overtake it, whichever. And once that's done, you can take the capital. Because if you accidentally kill this city first, then the capital will become invulnerable again. You've got to remove the defenses of the capital before you do anything about this city. And there's also a bribe strategy which people used in Civ 1 Barbarian games as well, where you basically, once they make a second city, you can attack the capital, overtake the capital, which will then make this one invulnerable. However, because this one's not a capital, because the palace was destroyed, you can use a barbarian to buy the city. So that was another strategy that I saw players doing, whereas me, I prefer to do it military and not worry about it, since money is so hard to come by unless you want to cheat money in. Which, while I gave myself a starting amount, I was not willing to keep cheating money through the game, as it just, you don't want to cheat too much. You want to try and cheat a bit at the start to give yourself the edge, and then that's it. No more cheating, just play el natural with the tools you've been given, or the tools you've given yourself. And so yeah, that's combat. I'll go into this a bit later as well, but just like in Civ 1, difficulty levels will have an effect on barbarian strengths. At deity level, the barbarians are much stronger, so I'm still not 100% convinced that bonus still works if you're in control of the barbarians, but nevertheless, just to be safe, I do set the game to deity. That of course has a bad effect in that it makes the AIs very quick and strong and cheating like mad, so you'll need to kill everyone very quickly. What other issues? When you kill a civilization and it respawns elsewhere on the map, any barbarians units in that area will disappear. And that actually might explain a mystery with Civ 1. I think I may have mentioned in my Civ 1 Barb video, I was like, why do barbarian units suddenly disappear randomly sometimes when I kill civs? It's probably because there was a new Civ settler nearby, the disappearances. And I didn't click to it then, but I sure as hell clicked to it in this one. Entire armies can vanish if you're not careful, so you may even have to reload when you kill a Civ to make a settler respawn elsewhere where you've got nothing, so you don't lose anything. And it's harder in Civ 2 than it is in Civ 1, because in Civ 1, each Civ got one respawn, which was kind of cool in that it meant you weren't trying to kill 7 civs, you end up having to kill 14 in total. Well, it's even worse in Civ 2. The civs will respawn twice more, so you're actually taking on like 21 civs in total. So I've had to kill, like I came down here and killed the Germans, they came back as the French, then I killed the French, then they came back as the Vikings, then I killed the Vikings, and then blue player was finally gone, So each colour, you got to take it out 3 times. And even sometimes, I don't know if it was bugging out or something, but some of the races came back with a 4th respawn. And I was like, F that. I didn't even wait for them to get a city. I just killed the unit, because I'm like, no, you're not cheating your way to a 4th respawn. I was like, you get 3 and that's it. But, if you want to go El Natural, you'll have to go kill the 4th respawn, which would be weird, because I remember, I think the Americans came back, which would have meant, if they created another city, there would have been 2 Washingtons, which would have been a bit weird, because I'd already killed them earlier on in the game, and then they came back again. And I was like, nope, I killed the settler before I could even make another Washington. So, there's some weird stuff like that, but, you can win, They won't keep respawning forever, so don't worry. You just got to keep at it. And as you can see, by the time I reached the end of my game here, I just had dudes all over the world. I was absolutely dominating. You can check out, lots of cities here. I didn't bother to sort of cheat any buildings into the other ones. I only my starting cities I gave some advantages to. All the ones I conquered I just left as they were, which meant they get stuck at 8. So you might want to turn off the aqueduct warning message in your game settings just to stop that annoying message coming up. But yeah, in my starting cities I gave them some stuff to grow quickly to try and give you a bit of industrial base, but without going overboard. Like, I didn't give them mines or anything. And I'll be, just like with my Civ 1 Barbarian game, I'll be releasing my game start to the public if you don't wish to worry about creating your own and you just want to use mine to see if you can do the same and conquer the world with the same starting tools that I gave myself. What else? Oh yeah, so I was going to have a look at a few more things. So let me see. Defense Minister talks about what I've got active right now. Foreign Minister, you can actually send an emissary and speak to them, even declare peace, but I don't think it quite works. I think they'll just basically attack you straight away because they don't like you. You're barbarian. You can send your diplomats into their cities to establish and spy on them, and of course barbarians get free diplomats all the time. The barbarian leader unit is a diplomat, so that's handy. You can use them. So whenever some spawned, I usually stockpiled them. I just sent them back to my land and stockpiled them in an area. So I'd always have a supply ready to go for when a new civ would respawn. What else? Attitude doesn't matter. Just like in Civ 1, your cities will not riot. That's why I set luxuries to maximum anyway, because you can't make any money or science, but it doesn't matter. Cities will not riot. And fortunately, you don't have that annoying Civ 1 problem where a captured city gets stuck in riot mode. Doesn't happen in Civ 2, so you don't have to worry about that. We've already been there. We've been there. Wonders of the world. I didn't give the computer a chance to build many in this one because I attacked very quickly, but very handy if you can allow a computer to get their hands, to build the pyramids, because then you get a granary in every city. Extremely handy for a barbarian player struggling to grow. You need that granary there. Very handy wonder, that one. So you guys might want to let a computer get their hands on that one. Top 5 cities, I should have all them. Been kicking ass. Score is surprisingly low because presumably just doesn't like you. You're a barbarian player stuck in the Dark Ages. So in Civ 1 I got rewarded quite nicely for kicking ass, but in this one they're being quite mean to me. And of course it says cheat mode because you have to activate cheat mode to set yourself as a barbarian player if you don't want to do it through a hex editor. So you'll see me how I do all that later, but it's unavoidable. But who cares? I mean, we're not really playing for scores when you're playing as the barbarians. You're doing it to play as the barbarians, so don't worry about that. Demographics is broken, just like in the playing as the barbarians in Civ 1. You just get stuck on first, I think, for almost everything, pretty much. I mean, it kind of works sometimes, but I don't know. It doesn't work properly, that's for sure. Spaceships, of course, that's not going to happen. In Civ 1, I think I told you guys that you could actually have a barbarian spaceship, although it would never result in a game victory. It didn't quite work properly. But in this one, you can't do it because even using third-party editor programs, you cannot set your cities to build buildings or wonders or anything like that. You can only give them improvements via an editor. You can't set them to build them. So as a result, you can't build a spaceship in Civ 2. So no barbarians going to Alpha Centauri in Civ 2. Sorry, guys. What else? There's one more horrible problem. Exclusive to Civ 2, it didn't happen in Civ 1. Your cities can freeze. This is a big problem that I've seen other people talking about when they tried to play as the barbarians. Your cities will stop building and they'll just get stuck. They'll never have any shields going towards production. And it turns out this bug is not necessarily a bug, it's actually probably a spam stopping filter in that. If the computer detects that the barbarian city has a defensive unit in it and that there are 16 units or more barbarian units on the same continent, it will freeze the city. Now presumably this is to stop spamming because obviously back in the 90s memory limits were a big thing, so Civ 2 has a unit, a limited unit count. I think it's a couple of hundred units or something like that. In the game I think it was like 100 in Civ 1, and I think in Civ 2 it's maybe, I don't know, 300, 400, I can't quite remember the number, sorry. But basically, obviously having a city that just spams out units infinitely is not good for that, so they put in a thing to stop that. But don't worry, we're not some dumb AI, we are a human, we can work around those problems. All you got to do is take the units out of the city and put them next to it. So if you take them out, I won't do it here, I can just show you another example where I've done it. See how I've done it here? I've basically taken the 2 defensive units, I put them 1 square away so they can jump back in if any danger comes nearby, and the city will continue to work despite the fact that there's a gazillion barbarian units on the same continent. So that's how you get around that bug. And I think that's the last of the bad things that can happen and how to get around them. Now, some of the good things, of course you get lots of reinforcements spamming in endlessly because you're barbarian, and it gets crazy in the late game. I pretty much had reinforcements coming in every turn. I've had to destroy them because I've already got massive armies conquering the map. All barbarian units are home city free. Look at that. None. Lots of nuns. Even the ones built in the cities do not have a home city. So you never have to worry about your cities getting overloaded with support. Look at that. These cities have pumped out hundreds of units and there's not one supported. Apparently, I've read online though, if you use diplomats to steal units from other players, that can lead to it being allocated to one of your nearby cities. So, because apparently normal unit stealing rules apply. It doesn't realise that you're barbarians. So, but I haven't tested that myself. But I thought I'd better mention that. But nevertheless, huge advantage that you can just have endless friggin' armies practically without any support. There was an annoying problem in Civ 1 where settlers and a lot of barbarian units would auto-pillage. Thankfully, that never happens in Civ 2. There is no auto-pillage. So you can have settlers working the land for as long as you want, wherever you want. They're only limited by the fact that you do not have any technology. So you don't have bridge building, you don't have railroads. So, I gifted myself some stuff. And sometimes you just got to wait for the computer to build a road over a river before you take their city, because you won't be able to do it yourself unless you use the cheat editor. In Civ 1, I often used a trick of putting a city on the actual river if I wanted to build a road over somewhere. In this one I was a bit lazier, and sometimes I actually did admittedly just cheat my way to put a road there. Just, I'd justify it by letting the settlers sit there for a couple of turns, and I'd be like, right, he totally built a bridge there. But it's up to you how much you want to. You don't want to spoil the game too much, but sometimes you can do things like that, within reason. I can't remember. I think you possibly need construction to build fortresses too, so you may not be able to build fortresses. I forgot to test that one, sorry, but I'm sure you guys will contest it, or you already know the answer. I think that's pretty much everything, other than the fact that I cannot stress enough, just like I did in my Civ 1 video, you've got to rush. You've got to rush. That's why I gave myself a starting advantage with some good cities. I think these are all size 6 when I started, and you've got to get them, or maybe they were less, maybe I left them on 1, I can't even remember now, but anyway, you've got to get them pumping out units, and you need to start attacking people the second they get 2 cities, and if they haven't got 2 cities yet, just start building an army up nearby them. Like in my other save game, you may have noticed that I generally had units hovering nearby a city, ready, just watching them, keeping an eye on them, spying on them, and waiting for that moment when they got 2 cities so I could strike. So just build up your armies and strike, and start hitting people as quickly as possible, because you're playing at deity. The AIs will progress quite quickly. They cheat, like mad, and once they've got city walls, you'll be in real trouble. So generally I was able to kill pretty much everyone before they got city walls, thankfully. Otherwise, units behind city walls, you're going to be in real trouble trying to stop them, even with catapults. Such is the defensive bonuses, particularly in capitals. It's ridiculous. You will lose so many units. You need to be ready for that. And if you let them get to like sort of industrial age, where they've got like musketeers and cannons and things, I think you'll be stuffed. I mean, trying to get a musketeer behind a city wall with a catapult, no chance. You'd have to start cheating your way to building better units or something. And yes, you start getting musketeers and cannons as the barbarians spawning on the map, but I think by then normally the computer's on the verge of getting modern techs like tanks and aircraft, and once that happens, just like in Civ 1, it is game over. You cannot win as the barbarians if the enemy has aircraft, pretty much, because they can just send fighters out to mop up all your units as they approach. You're stuffed. You cannot, and then even if you can get to their cities, you're not going to be able to beat things like mech imps and stuff like that. You got no chance. So you've got to kill them quickly. I mean, yes, you could probably use some of the city editing things to start making your cities produce tanks, so I guess theoretically it's possible, but if you're not trying to do too much of that, like I said, I generally just cheated at the start to set these cities to build things like catapults and stuff like that, and then I just left them to it, and I didn't bother to mess using third-party editors for the rest of the game. I didn't want to cheat too much. And so, but if you were a heavy cheater, then yeah, sure, maybe you could start building tanks once they do, but I'd rather not even try it. I just basically went for the kill and killed as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think that's everything, all the information about playing as a barbarian. Now I'm going to show you how to set up a game as a barbarian, how to do use through the cheat menu to actually set yourself to play as a barbarian, because it's not obvious, there's not an option. You've got to use this clever little trick workaround that fans figured out. And then I'll show you how to use the third-party editors to set your government, to set the build queues. We'll go through it all. Alright, so let's start a new game and take control of the Barbarians. So to do that, I think perhaps we'll do customise world, and I mean, it depends how big a game you want to have. For this one I'll just select normal, because obviously it might be quite difficult in large mode to chase down all those civs. You want large landmass because the more land is connected, the better it is for you. Continents, yeah, normal will be right. Temperate, I mean, you can try and make it the conditions more difficult for the computer to grow, but of course then that really harms you, unless of course you use the editor to give yourself a nice grassland area. It's up to you how you want to go with that. Go with deity, as like I said before, the Barbarians get strength bonuses at the higher the difficulty, and they get massive penalties the lower the difficulty, although I'm still not 100% convinced that applies when you're in control of them, but nevertheless, just to be safe, I select deity. Plus it's all part of the challenge, you know, if the AIs are growing quickly. 7 civs, raging hordes, because, you know, remember these are our reinforcements we're setting here, so we want lots of that. And if you wanted, you could go to custom rules and, you know, do some stuff here like don't restart eliminated players, and that would stick just the original 7 to kill if you want an easy game. But I like the challenge of hunting down respawns. It makes it a much bigger and exciting game, so we'll leave it on standard. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just start as the Americans. That's what it was left on. Doesn't really matter what we're selecting here because this won't be us pretty soon. So what you do is you go to, let me see, standard zone. We need to play out the American turn. So we'll give them a city because that's what the AI would have done. There you go. And we'll just space bar that. Alright, because you need to get this end of turn warning appearing here. So what we need to do is we go to cheat mode, we activate it. Yes. Go to reveal map. So, let's have a look around and see where it might be a good place to start as the Barbarians. You don't really want to be next to someone. So they're all pretty huddled in the southern area, so there might be something good up here. There's a player there, but it's pretty good around here, isn't it, guys? Yeah, I reckon around this river might be an excellent place to start a game. Right click to select an area, and so we've done that. So once you've got the flashing square, you know you've selected that tile. So now you go to create unit. Now we've already got settler selected, and that's what we want, but you go to foreign and see how you can create a barbarian unit. So we hit that, and look at that, it's created a barbarian unit, but we're not in control of it yet. So to do that, what you've got to do is you've got to reveal the map for the barbarian player only, because on set human player you can't set it to be barbarian, so we have to use this trick to get around that. There we go. So now we've only got the barbarian view, and then you click on the settler, and that sort of almost takes control but doesn't quite. But to take control of it, now that we've clicked on the settler, we can either hit enter or click in this status window to end the turn. The allies will have their moves, and then on the new turn, ta-da, we're in control of the Barbarians. Haha, and for some reason you get the Roman city names. I don't know why. In my game I changed them to use the names that Civ 1 was using for Barbarian cities, which was pretty cool, so I think I named it Mecca and all the other names it uses. Rome founded, and huzzah, look at that, we're barbarians, we've even got a palace, and there you go, we're ready to start our game. Now, I'll show you how to use the editors to manipulate this city. Now if you want, you can have a look at the entire map again. We're now playing as the Barbarians, so we're locked into them, you don't have to worry about losing control. So, you know, if you want to manipulate the land, like I recommend, say, putting in water here and here so that you can move ships through here, connecting more of the land masses, and doing it cleverly. Like, for instance, you know, you connect it in that these two are water, but land units can still cross a bridge. You know what I mean? So, that allows you to move armies from continent to continent, but once you have ships, you can also move them in between continents still. So that's very handy for a barbarian game. Or if you want the extra challenge, just leave it as it is. I mean, this is actually a pretty good map. Almost everything is connected. So whereas in my game, it wasn't. So I had to do a little bit of editing to get it how I want it. But nevertheless, it's pretty good. Now, if you want to do what I did in my game, you can make multiple barbarian cities. You can give them some stuff, you know, and customize it how you want it. But I'll leave it with this one city, and what I'll do is I'll save this game, and then I'll show you how to edit it using the editor to give yourself a government, and to give yourself some buildings, and to set the build queue to be something else other than these three things. Okay guys, so to edit your save game, you're going to need two programs, CivTweak and CivCity, made by a very talented Civ fan many years ago, and you can still find them these days over at the Civ Fanatics forums in the download section, and maybe even in an old web archive backup of a Polyton. And I'll have links in this video and also on my website Tribute to Civ 2 as well. So you should be able to get them without too much trouble. Now the only issue, however, is they are 16-bit applications, I'm very sorry to say, guys, which means they're not going to run on a modern operating system. You're going to need a virtual machine or an old computer nearby to do this. I don't have an old computer nearby, so I created a Windows XP virtual machine, which I used to run old games like Civ 1 and Colonization and things like that on there, and Starflight. So fortunately, I was able to run these editor programs on there. So I just copied my Barbarian test save file that I just made over to my virtual machine, and now I can load it in these programs. So we load up CivTweak, and what we do is we select the save game, and we're able to do some interesting things. So most, of course, you can go and mess again with all the rules that we just set up while starting the game if we want, but I'll leave everything as is. But down here is the one that matters. Look at this. Barbarian settings. Form a government. You can set them to have another government. So in my game, I gave myself monarchy. If you really want to go all out, you can give yourself one of the advanced ones, but I didn't want to go too far. So I gave myself monarchy, and you're going to need to give yourself some gold, because like I said, you cannot generate gold, but you still lose gold. So you need something to afford the expenditure of having buildings in a city, until basically you've captured enough cities to build barracks. So, you give myself a few thousand to get started, and that's pretty much everything I want to do in this one. So then we go save. And then if we go into CivCity and load the same game, we can see Rome, which we created, and see how it says own a barbarian. So we can see it's definitely not the Roman Romans, it's definitely the barbarian Romans that we just created. And here is where you can give yourself stuff. So you can give yourself a whole bunch of starting buildings if you want, and save city. And also you can let me see, you can play with this kind of stuff if you want, but it doesn't really matter for a barbarian game, because you're not going to be able to build ships anyway. We're not next to water, and even if we were, it doesn't let you build triremes, sadly, unless you force it to. So let me see, this is where you select the units that you can't normally build as a barbarian. You can select buildings and wonders, but it will stop you. It won't let you. So let me see, if I go solar plant, save, barbarians can only build units, not city improvements. So presumably, this person has allowed you to hack into everything and change everything that you couldn't in the regular game. So the fact that even he stops you means that presumably it's somehow hard-coded in the game to not let barbarians build buildings. Otherwise, surely he would have let you go work around that, which is a shame, because obviously you could manipulate that in the Civ 1 as barbarians using fan third-party editors. But nevertheless, we can at least set this to build whatever unit we want. You can have it building tanks if you want, but we'll go for what I did in my game, which was some nice catapults. There we go. And you can give them some food and some shields if you want, and things like that. I'll leave it like that, I reckon. and now we'll go load this save game in Civ. Okay, so I've just loaded our save game after putting it through those editors, and let's have a look at the kingdom. Monarchy! There we go, guys. So now we can obviously push these to higher levels, not that it really matters, because taxes and science don't work, and luxuries do work, but it doesn't matter because your cities will never riot. And if, of course, we go to things like that, it should say King. Yep, King Attila of the Barbarians. And look at Rome, you already know there's a difference here because you can see the wall around it. And look at that, there's all the buildings we put in there, and look what it's building. Lovely catapults. And of course, if you hit change on that, you'll be stuck. It'll revert back to the usual barbarian options. I think even if I hit escape, yep, look at that. So do not touch the change button, just like in Civ 1 with the barbarians. Once you've used an editor to set it to build what you want, do not touch the change thing. You should be able to still buy stuff if you want though. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. I think the last thing I want to show you guys is something really cool in that, the big difference between Civ 2 and Civ 1 in playing Barbarians is that a whole other universe of options is available to you, in that you can play a game as the Barbarians in a scenario. And of course Civ 2 comes with the add-ons, comes with many scenarios, all sorts of fantasy and sci-fi scenarios where all the units were changed. So the Barbarians often got raging hordes spawning of all kinds of crazy units, and you could play as the Barbarians and take control of those units. So you can have all kind, the mind, there's no limit. You could have some crazy games if you're not interested in doing a vanilla Barbarian game. So I'll quickly show you how you can do that now. Here we go, guys, just to quickly show you what I was talking about. Like, I love the Martian scenario. It's such a good scenario, and I played it recently the other day, and I thought I'd save a game at the point of a massive Barbarian attack. As you can see, they get all kinds of crazy things, like these screamer speeder things and these dune sailing ships, and they're quite powerful, and they come in huge numbers. Like, this is a huge force. There's even more under that, and that if you play as the Barbarians, you'll get these kind of reinforcements, and you could wreak havoc on this planet. It'll be so much fun. So I'll show you how you can do that now, because we can actually, if we wanted to, take control of the Barbarians here right now, but the problem is part of that process is to let a turn go by, and then we'll have to sit here watching while all these players do all this crazy stuff, and I don't want to deal with that. So what we'll do is we'll start a new game, and I'll show you how to take control of the Barbarians in this Martian scenario, and you'll be able to apply this to all the other scenarios, like the Master of Orion scenario, the Master of Magic scenario, the Apocalypse scenario, the World War II and World War I scenarios. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, so here we go. So we go to begin scenario, and I've already got it in the Mars scenario folder. So we'll start it up. Mars now. Doesn't really matter who we pick. I think the Australians get the first move, so I think they're the ones I should be picking. Go deity. Just leave it all on default. Now in this particular scenario, everyone's already got a city, but we need to get it to the end of the turn. So I'll just spacebar all these guys, which might put the Australians at a slight disadvantage compared to the other players. But I need that turn to the end of turn to appear. Here we go. Okay, so we go to cheat. Yep. Reveal map. Beautiful Mars appears. I love this scenario. It almost feels like a different game, doesn't it? It's so cool. So all the players start near the water, which obviously is very important. So you may wish to do the same, say like roughly here. Or if you really want to give yourself some space, you can start here in the center, but you'll need to give yourself notice how the computer players in the center were given some irrigation, otherwise they're at a massive disadvantage. They have to be near water to irrigate, but these guys thankfully had a way around that. So you could do the same thing, or change one of these squares to have water in it if you want. Change terrain at cruiser, terrain, watershed. There you go. So here we go. So we do the exact same thing we did last time. So we go create unit. Field scientist is this scenario's version of a settler. Foreign, barbarian. And then reveal the map for the barbarian player only, and then we select the field scientist, so he's selected there, and then we click in the window and everyone else should take their turn, and then we get the story event here. about the situation of the Mars scenario, and then we should be in control. There we go. Build a city. Looks like we get the American names. Aldrin founded. And you get the same starting units as everyone else. Of course, they're just, in this particular scenario, the starting units are just as weak as, the warriors, sadly. So it may be in some other scenarios the Barbarians might have access to some pretty freaky stuff in their cities. But either way, just like with regular Civ, you can put this save game into those Civ editors and then make the Barbarians better. The only problem is those Civ editors can't see fantastical units. They only see the original Civ 2 default. So if you want some fancy tank in this one, you're going to have to work out what slot it is in, equivalent to the original game. I suppose you could look at, say, the picture files in the scenario folder, see where the unit is you want, then go look at the Civ 2 picture files and match it up, the whatever original unit is in that position, or maybe even in the unit list. I don't know, can't remember the settings, basically the settings for the game. You can find the unit list, that might tell you as well. But either way, you can do it if you really want to do this in a scenario with fantastical units. You can start setting cities to build some fancy tanks or something, and you can even, once again, you can give it, you won't be able to see the building names as well, but generally most of these scenarios, they're just renamed with different pictures. Like this is still a palace, and a granary is still a granary, it's just got a different name. So you should be able to work all that stuff out. But nevertheless, in this scenario, once those freaky armies start showing up with all those speeder vehicles and sailing things, you'll be in control of it because you are now the Barbarians. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to show you guys for playing Barbarians in Civ 2. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and are enjoying this series, and I'll continue to try and play Barbarians in as many different Civ and Civ related games as I can. This video is part of a big series I'm doing where I'm showing you all the old games like Civ and Colonization and the sequels, Civ 2, Civ 3, and some of the other spin-offs like Alpha Centauri and Call to Power, Test of Time, all that kind of. I'm going to show you how to play them all in HD, and I'm also playing some of my favourite scenarios, and I hope you guys come back for those episodes. That's all for now. Bye.